So everybody says that dental specialties are competitive, but which ones are the most competitive and the hardest to get into for dental students or dentists? I decided to look up the actual match data for this most recent applicant cycle of 2026 so I could show you all exactly which specialties are the hardest to get into or the most competitive. So in today's video, we're going to be ranking the top 5 most competitive dental specialties and using real numbers like the number of positions offered, the number of programs out there, the number of seats that are filled, and overall just discussing how competitive these residencies are behind the scenes. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dr. Eli and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm a first-year orthodontics resident and I recently graduated dental school in 2025. On this channel, I make videos with advice for pre-dental students and also vlog my dental school journey and my residency journey. So if that's something you're interested in, please make sure you subscribe. So as a pre-dent and a dental student, I always heard that oral surgery and orthodontics were the most competitive residencies to get into. I never really thought about why that is. Maybe because those are the specialties that make the most money or the ones that people can relate to the most. You know, orthodontics is where a lot of people got their first experience with dentistry or wanting to be some kind of dentist. And oral surgery gives people that want to be surgeons a way that they can be dentists and surgeons. But when I was in dental school in my 4th year class, 10 people applied for orthodontics, which is one of the most competitive residencies to get into, and 9 people matched. So how competitive is it really? So I decided to go on the National Matching Service and look at the stats from the most recent applicant cycle, which is 2026, the current D4s that just matched, and see how competitive these specialties actually are by the raw numbers. So if you want to access this resource that I'm using, I'll leave the link in the description below and you can take a look at these raw numbers, and if I don't mention the specialty that you're specifically interested in, you can go on this file and look at the numbers just the way I'm describing them to you as well. Now, since I know a lot of people in general are interested in pediatric dentistry, this is not one of the most competitive residencies, but I just wanted to give you all the numbers so that you have it here. So according to this file, there are 94 pediatric residencies that participate in the match. And out of those residencies, there are 480 positions offered, with 12 programs having 8 or more positions. Now, unfortunately, this file does not give us the exact numbers of how many people applied, but it does give us how many applicants were ranked by at least one program. So there may be a lot more people applying, but the number of people that are considered acceptable applicants, which were ranked by at least one program, are 558. For 480 spots, that means you have a pretty good chance of getting in somewhere or at least ranking somewhere. However, with the match, things end up where you just don't fall right in the algorithm, and that's kind of the sucky part. Now, coming in at number 5 most competitive specialty to get into is prosthodontics. In 2026, there were 39 prosthodontic residencies participating in the match and a total of 130 positions. Prosthodontics only had 155 applicants that were deemed acceptable applicants, meaning they were ranked by at least one program. So 155 acceptable applicants for 130 seats is not a bad ratio at all. It looks like out of the 39 programs participating in the match, there were 6 programs that had unfilled positions and a total of 14 unfilled spots remaining after the match. So you still have post-match and you still have a little bit of a chance. So 116 people matched. There were 14 spots that still didn't match, and there were a total of 155 acceptable applicants. So if you're interested in specializing in pros, you actually have a pretty good chance. Not too bad. Now, coming in at number 4, we have dental anesthesiology. Now, I really thought this would land higher on the list because there's such few number of spots. Dental anesthesiology only has 10 residencies participating in the match for a total of 34 positions. Now, here they say there were 45 applicants that were ranked by at least one program. So you have a pretty good chance of getting in there as well. The ratio of acceptable applicants per position offered for anesthesia is pretty similar to the one for peds, with anesthesia landing at 1.3, while peds landed at 1.2. For reference, pros also landed at 1.2. Dental anesthesiology, on the other hand, had a 100% fill rate, so all of the positions that were offered in the match were filled on match day. There was no opportunity for post-match for dental anesthesiology. It's super competitive. It requires that you take the CBSE just like oral surgery, and that's a deterrent for a lot of people. So Dental anesthesiology, while the numbers don't show, is actually a very competitive residency to get into. It's just not as highly sought after as some of these other ones that are going to come further along this list. So coming in at number 3, you have periodontics. Periodontics is also fairly small, sort of like pros, not like dental anesthesiology. But in 2026, perio had a 98% fill rate. So exactly like pros, perio had 39 programs that participated in the match and 132 spots available, so just 2 more than pros. Perio had 200 acceptable applicants compared to pros 155, putting perio at a 1.5 ratio of acceptable applicants to positions offered. So you had 200 acceptable applicants and 132 positions offered. Now, what makes perio so competitive? I guess what it boils down to is that there's not a lot of positions similar to pros, but there's a high demand for these positions, which is why less positions go unmatched. Like I mentioned, perio had 132 positions to fill and only 3 spots went unfilled at 2 different programs. So one of the programs had 1 and 1 had 2. Am I surprised to see this? A little bit. I think there's a place for everybody, but perio definitely was not one of my interests coming out of dental school or while I was in dental school. But a lot of people want to be periodontists. Shout out to the periodontists out there. I always give a shout out to Dr. Davis when I'm talking about periodontists. So shout out to y'all. Coming in at number 2, you have oral and maxillofacial surgery. Now, OMFS and ortho are going to battle back and forth about who's more competitive. Honestly, I think there's nuances to each, because personally, I would never take the CBSE and sign up to go to school for another 4 to 6 years, but there's some people that would just love to do that. So OMFS actually had a larger number of seats compared to these other specialties that I've been talking about. OMFS had 93 programs participating in the match and 260 positions offered in the match. Now, I can say I'm not 100% sure if these include categorical and non-categorical interns. Oral surgery essentially has a way that you can match into a program as a non-categorical intern and essentially be a first-year resident with no guarantee of moving on to the second year. Now, going back to the stats on OMFS residency, 93 residencies participating in the match, 260 positions offered in the match, 346 acceptable applicants, leading to a 1.3 ratio of acceptable applicant to position offered. But there were 17 unmatched spots in 2026 for OMFS at 8 different programs. So as a result, OMFS in 2026 had a 93% fill rate. What the numbers don't show is that the quality of the applicants for OMFS are elite. You typically have to be top of your class, have a high CBSE score. Most people take the CBSE 2 or 3 times. Plus you have to do externships, you have to have research. There's a lot of things that go into applying to OMFS and you have to grind. My friends that ended up matching into OMFS were literally on a 4-year grind in dental school. They were always studying for the next opportunity to take the CBSE, which is only offered twice a year. They were traveling for externships, trying to finish requirements. There was just a lot going on, but luckily for them, it ended up paying off. So OMFS is not only competitive because of the numbers, it's literally the cream of the crop and the hardest workers that you know. However, it doesn't come at number 1. You know what's number 1, baby. The big ortho. Orthodontics comes in as number 1 for the most competitive specialty to get into. Let's look purely at the numbers. We've got 60 residencies participating in the match, so less than OMFS, but more than perio, pros, and dental anesthesiology. You got 362 positions offered. Now, I want you all to take that with a grain of salt, because there is one program that has 45 seats. Yeah, 45 seats. So if you take that one program away, you're now looking at 59 residencies participating in the match and 317 positions offered. Now for ortho, you have 610 applicants that are deemed acceptable applicants. That is almost double the amount for OMFS and triple the amount for perio and pros. We won't even count the ratio for dental anesthesiology. It's not a fair comparison. That gives ortho the highest ratio for acceptable applicants per position offered at 1.7. So in orthodontics, all but one program was filled in the match, And when you look at these numbers, there were 341 positions filled in the match, and the one program had 21 positions that were unfilled. So the program that offers 45 seats doesn't even end up matching 2/3 of them. They match just about half. So you've got a 94% fill rate, but when you remove this one program, you have a 100% fill rate. There really is no opportunity for post-match. The 1.7 applicants per position gives it the highest ratio out of all the dental specialties. So there's more competition, it's harder to get into, and you still have the things that you consider with oral surgery where you have to do research, you have to be ranked highly in your class, you have to take a standardized test, which is the GRE, and with bias, I say you gotta be a really cool individual. In my opinion, personality matters a lot when it comes to orthodontics because you're basically like halfway a pediatric dentist. I never really thought about it, but you do interact with a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers, of course, but you'd be surprised how many kids that come into the office and they're not so calm, or they may not be so ready to be seen by an orthodontist just yet, but the AAO recommends that you bring your children for their first orthodontic visit at 7 years old. And so you will be seeing some of those young kids that are referred from the pediatric office. And some of them may need treatment. There may be things going on that require a phase 1 treatment, and you'll be dealing with a good amount of kids. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into matching into orthodontics, and it makes sense that it is currently the most competitive residency to get into in dentistry. So the final ranking, number 1 is orthodontics, number 2 is OMFS, number 3 is perio, number 4 is dental anesthesia, and number 5 is prosthodontic. But to be honest, if dental anesthesia got any more applicants, they would definitely crack the top 3. At 34 positions, they only need 58 acceptable applicants, which is 13 more than what they had last year, and they would match the exact ratio of acceptable applicants to positions offered that orthodontics has. But at the end of the day, don't worry about how competitive a specialty is. I think the reason why 9 people in my class matched into the most competitive specialty is because we all helped each other, we had a collaborative environment, and everyone made everybody else feel accepted. At the end of the day, my viewpoint was always what's meant to be will be, but you don't want to be that person that's a gunner or stabs people in the back to get to where they can get, because that reputation will follow you everywhere. If you want more breakdowns on dental topics and things like getting into dental school, dental residency, etc. like this, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace. I got baguettes in the back of my ring, and I went trying to hit me. I told her she gotta run to the team before she can talk to the lit. Before she can talk to the jet. Lamb chop, I just pulled up in some food.